And chapter 1. This is about child abuse, survival, and my divine calling. So bear with me because this is a long time ago. I'm almost 68 years old, right? And so I wrote down a script so I can share with you, the key points. So here we go. First of all, I was raised by an impoverished single mother without support or mentors. And she's I love my mom. I, I back her up all the time. I support her to this day. But she was alone, and there was no father, and it was tough times. By age 13, I had moved from East Los Angeles, Maravilla Projects. Those of you that know Maravilla, I had moved from Maravilla to San Fernando at 13 or even 12. And I made new friends. And at that point, I stood firm in rebellion for survival's sake against my mom's next move to yet another house. I ran away into a station wagon in the backyard of my friend's house, which was Mario Gonzalez, Bernard B. Gonzalez, John Porter, Jay Porter. They had solid families, and they were really good to me. I wish that I had been as good to them. So by age 17, I had lived in 24 homes. And I was always alone and suffered all forms of abuse. I don't need to go into those details. You guys already know what kind of abuse you went through. But I was always the new kid on the block, and in gang-infested neighborhoods. Every move solidified the pain of losing friendships because I was always starting all over again and not belonging in the new neighborhoods where I was forced to become a warrior to survive. By the time I was 8 years old, I had learned wrestling from a professional wrestler named Pedro Lujan. I had learned karate from world champions Benny the Jet Urquidez, who's a dear friend still to this day, Lily Urquidez, who passed away, and Blinky Rodriguez, who's still a good friend of mine. And I learned a little bit of boxing from Bobby Chacon and Jaime Garza, and whoever else was training in those days. But the gangs and the drugs eventually led to prison and addiction. And how I achieved my need to belong in the neighborhoods was through the neighborhood clubs. First, I was with The Chosen, with, friends at the time, when I was a kid. Pilo Salazar, Mario Gonzalez, Henry Rodriguez, a bunch of us, right? And then I went to Los Primos with Mike Bailey and a few others. And eventually I got into the Barrio San Fed Locos. And most of my friends were in Brown Image, Brown Society, Sensations, Aggressives, Distinguished, The Group, Benny Urquidez and Blinky and a bunch of others were in the group. Tough guys, because these guys knew how to fight. And of course there was Freedom, Midnight Breed, and then the Biker Sundowners from San Fernando. So remember, I'm alone. I'm moving from house to house. It's hard for me to stay connected because I'm always being ripped apart from whatever friends I had formed. And then, where was I? Okay, so fortunately, I sought out positive support systems. Not easy to come by in those days, for me anyway, but I just made it a point. And here and there were some pillars, some powerful people that helped me out and gave me a little bit of direction and guidance. Very little, but at least I had a tiny bit of mentoring to keep me going. Now, on the outside, I looked amazing, but inside, the strongholds and the voids from early childhood, they continued to sabotage me until way later in life, which I'm going to go over. And that's when I began to walk in my birthright power beyond measure. So I'll repeat this last sentence because that's really where people struggle today. They don't know how to differentiate between the false inadequacies that are perpetuated in this world system that we're all a part of versus the birthright power beyond measure, which is our true identity. And because you're made in God's image and likeness. But most people don't know how to reconcile the difference or that dichotomy in their life. You know, in the Bible they call it that the flesh, wrestles and wars against the spirit. I'll go more into that later, okay? But I mean, I looked great outside. I was handsome, healthy, fast, strong, an incredible fighter. I had what I need to survive. But inside my heart, I was lost. I was disconnected. And I was just going through the motions to get from A to B. Not even A to Z, but just A to B. Now I'm going to go into the second part of chapter 1, ages 16 to 21, where the drugs and prison and then addiction and then a 1978 visitation from Jesus and vision about the future, which is why I'm coming out of retirement. So, again, I'm reading from the script, right? So because I experienced addiction, prison, hopelessness, and spiritual transformation firsthand, today I understand people who feel trapped because I once was trapped myself. But I got to qualify that this message, my chapters of life, are not just about people that were on drugs and addiction. Because as I go into my next chapters, you'll see where I went from making $60,000 a month, making $120,000 a month, $3.5 million by age 47. So I understand a whole lot about economic success, project management, marketing, business, legal, etc. I'll go more into that later. But I'm still going ages 16 to 21, right? Now, by 1978, or actually in 1978, I held the record for the largest drug raid in San Fernando, California, for which I was looking at 10 years in prison. Thank God I was connected to one of Paul McCartney's lawyers who defended me, and he suspended the 10-year prison sentence, and I only served 1 year in county jail. After I get out of jail, crack and freebase are rampant. That's when they first came out. So we're looking at 1970, late 70s. And I, along with many of my friends, not all my friends, thank God, became addicted overnight. I mean, somebody just came up and says, hey, you don't got to put that stuff in your nose. You can just smoke it. I thought that was a great idea. And boy, worst mistake I ever made in those days. But my turning point is that, again, back to my 1978 platform vision and visitation with Jesus. But I didn't accept, complete commitment to God until Easter Sunday of 1981, which I'll go over. Interestingly, yet not, this is really it. This is a trip. It may not be related, but I don't have all the answers to life. But this is interesting or ironic, whatever word you want to use. My recurring platform dream occurred where the famous musician Richie Valens, which is actually Ricardo Valenzuela, where Richie Valens received his recurring dream about a plane crash. You remember that in the movie La Bamba. Anyway, which was near his home, right? I lived near his house, right next to San Fernando High School, on the same street where he played his first concert at the American Legion on Tamarack and Fox. I lived on Tamarack, just a few houses away. I lived at 11336 Tamarack Avenue in San Fernando. And this is where Jesus visited me and gave me my recurring platform dream, which is now 24/7 empowerment. Decades later, right? I've given you a lot of information, but this is interesting. If you're not doing anything, you can kick back and watch this video, and maybe things in your life connect, or maybe other things connect. But there will be something or many things that you will relate to. It's a great, I guess you can say it's a great movie to watch because it's a true story. It's my true story. Now, moving forward, this is right before I accept God's calling. Something had happened, and I'm on my way to pick up a gun. I'm going to kill somebody. I don't even know who or what for. It's stupid anyway. But on my way, I run into my friend Henry Rodriguez's uncle, which is Robert Torres. He was a musician. He played guitar. Great guy. And he had accepted Christ into his life. Robert Torres is there on my way. He says, "Hey, Rob. Hey, Joe. What are you doing?" And we're talking. And he came in. He just hit me right in the gut. Now, he didn't know that God had been dealing with me at that time. And I mean, really dealing with me. Remember, in 1978, Jesus appeared to me. That's profound. I don't know very many people. I don't know if I know anybody. Well, I probably do know somebody that Jesus actually appeared to them, came to them. And Robert just says, "Joseph," well, he called me Joe in those days. He says, "I don't know about you, man. I don't know anybody that Jesus visited, and yet still you won't submit to God's call on your life." Well, I just turned around because I knew the tears were coming down my eyes already, and I didn't want him to see me cry. So I left. I didn't get a gun. I didn't kill anybody. And I went home. Now, later that night, I'm going to go get high. I'm going to my friend's house, Joe Rubio's house, and he's not there. So I'm kind of waiting around, and all of a sudden I see this guy pushing a little car, and I can see that there's a family inside. So I'm not doing nothing. I run over and I help him push the car. I'm telling you, at least a mile, because there was no gas stations for a long ways. And the moment that I got to him, it was Flat Top McCrary with his wife, Cookie McCrary. In case you don't know who these people are, this is Howard McCrary's family. Howard McCrary's family are the ones that used to lead in praise and worship for a famous evangelist in those days, which was Kathryn Kuhlman. So those of you that are old enough to remember Kathryn Kuhlman, then his worship guy her worship person was Howard McCrary. So anyway, Flat Top sees me coming up to help. He says, "Oh, thank you, brother, thank you." Well, simple words. People use those words every day. But when he said it, and maybe because God had already prepared my heart, when he said that, man, I'm telling you, I felt energy in my body. I mean, really, really powerful. Anyway, I pushed the car. He dropped me off. I don't know what I did with my bike or that I was riding that night. He drops me off at my house and invites me to a prayer meeting and which was the next night. I didn't realize that it was going to be Good Friday. Well, so I carry on. The next day, no, that same night, I'm home, and then my friend Robert Rodriguez, we call him Crazy Luke, back in the day. Robert is Blinky Rodriguez's brother. Blinky was the United States champion in kickboxing. He fought Bill Superfoot Wallace. And anyway, Blinky's a good guy. He's a great friend of mine. Anyway, Robert comes to my house, and he does the same thing to me that Robert Torres had done earlier that day. He says, Joe, why aren't you serving God, dude? Jesus came to you, man. He didn't know what had been happening in my life, and so I just turned to the right again, like I did with Robert Torres. I didn't want him to see me crying, but this time what I did is I said a little, well, I don't know about a prayer, but I was talking to God, and I says, God, is there still a chance for me to be with you, or did you close the doors on me? Because this is 3 years later, from 1978 to 1981. That's 3 years. And when I turn to the right and I'm talking to God, a falling star comes down. And then I go, what was that for me? And another falling star comes down. I went through a sequence of questions related to me being in relationship to God. And every time I asked the question, another falling star came down. Now, I don't know if maybe that night I just happened to be out when there was a flurry of falling stars coming down, but that's what happened. And so, all of this played a part. Benny the Jet Urquidez, world champion Lily Urquidez, and against Blinky, Tommy Crummell, and others played a major role in my salvation and recovery in those days. So then comes my Easter Sunday salvation at Evangelism Today Outreach. And no. I went to the Good Night, the Good Friday service with Flat Top. And then here comes Sunday. I'm ready to give my life to God. I don't know what church to go to. I know everybody was at church, even though my partying crazy sinner friends, I guess they were at church because it was Easter Sunday. Anyway, I remembered where Evangelism Today was, and I ran all the way over there. It was about 3 miles. I ran over there, and I made it just in time for the altar call. And I think it was Paul Whitcomb or whoever was doing the altar call. I barely had enough. I sat down, and then he does the altar call. I go right up, man, 100% positive that I was ready to make a commitment to the Creator of the heavens and the earth. I could go into a whole lot there about my early days of being in a relationship with God, but one interesting thing is I'm in service one day, and we're praising and worshiping, and those of you that know about the rushing mighty wind, and if you don't know, you can look it up in the Bible, you can Google it or whatever. I'm in there worshiping, all of a sudden I hear rushing and mighty winds or water or rivers or something, a sound that I don't know how to describe it. You can imagine it any way you want. But I'm experiencing this. I'm thinking everybody is hearing it, but it's coming from my spirit. And next thing you know, I am lifted. I'm in church, okay? I'm lifted above my body. I'm looking down at my body, looking at the whole entire congregation, praising and worshiping God. And that was that's just one story I'm going to give you in my early days of giving my life to God. Now, again, I'm going to keep closing with this sentence. Everybody on the outside looked at me as an amazing guy, because amazing things were always happening in my life. But nobody knew how broken I was inside. And that might be you. Maybe there's things in your life, maybe you're successful already, or whatever your situation is on the outside, but on the inside, there's still something that you're ready to resolve. And I want you to stay tuned for the moment that all of these barriers and sabotages were discovered and dissolved, and how I started walking in my birthright power beyond measure.